Hello, Core and Mads. How are you doing today?
Hi, great.
Hi,
Thank you. Now
fine,
let
thank you.
the Kåre
Oh,
So,
say
Core,
something, Kåre.
I said fine. I don't
yeah,
think if
yeah,
you heard. I am
yeah, no,
fine.
no, no. The cold open is always odd for people, but it's a fun way to get going. Uh, so this is Core and Mads. They are co-designers on the game Shake That City that is coming out from Alderact AEG. Oh, and there you have the box. Very nice. It's going to be hitting Kickstarter crowdfunding in November, and then will be delivered as long as there's no problem sometime in the spring to backers. So why don't you both of you in whatever order tell us a little about the game and how you came to work together on that game, and let's go from there.
Yeah, so I think Kåre, maybe you should start explaining about how your plan was that you wanted actually to have a game signed and that you put in
Yeah,
some
yeah.
extra work into that. Let's hear about that
I'll,
first.
I'll tell a little bit of story. So me and Mads has been, in the game Danish game design community and known each other, but more like we knew each other who we were, but not much more than that. And then some time ago, I decided that uh, I wanted to have a game published. That was sort of my ambition. That I thought that could be cool to have a game published. And then I sat down and say, how do I do that? And I realized between having a small kid um, and working, it was very hard to actually put in the effort that I thought it needed. So after some time, I decided, some consideration, decided to take some time off to do that. So I worked part time for a period, and up to that point, I started to say, okay, now I get all this time available. What do I want to do? And I sat down and wrote a list. And one of the things I wrote on that list was I wanted to work with somebody. I'd mostly done the games I'd done in the past. I had mostly done by myself, and I found from other activities I'd done that I really like working with people. So I sat down and said, I want to work with people, and I thought, who do I want to work with? And on top of that list was actually Mads. I thought I would really like to work with Mads. So I grabbed hold of him, and we talked a little bit about. We were actually, I think, we were testing one of your games, Mads, and just talking. I
Yeah,
said, hey, and I told him my plan and said, do you want to make a game together? And Mads said, sure, let's do that. And that was actually just before the Corona hit. So we started out working. Mads came up with, I think it was the first idea Mads came up with. He had this idea, and he would like to hear what I thought about it. And we were working remotely when we were trying to figure out how to do that. And that grew very quickly from there to actually to Shake That City.
Very cool. So did you have to work on your prototype during any lockdowns or anything?
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
I think most of the design on the game was made during lockdowns, and but I mean, Kåre lives a few hours away, and he could make the trip down here to me, and we would meet up physically for some meetings, but a lot of other meetings we just did those online, especially when we actually after we had signed the game. Then it became even more like in the development process. That's all been done online. So with the publisher AG, yeah.
yeah.
So
I mean, I only ask because some people have hated that iteration process of having to do things online, and some people have really enjoyed it. How did that feel to both of you to have to work online on a prototype? Because a prototype, some people just like having the actual thing in their hands. How did that feel to both of you?
yeah, so this game is very like a physical. It has a very
Yeah.
physical component, as you can see here on the box. Inside of the game, there's this box here which we call the shaker. You will shake that, then
Hmm.
you will push a lever, and then you would lift it, and then these 9 cubes, not exactly these 9, but a pattern of cubes like these 9 here, will be on the table, and then you will choose one of the colors, and then you will build something that corresponds to those colors on your player board to build your own little city. And so that's a very physical thing. I think what we started out with was we had some cubes in a bag, and we just took them out one by one until we had that grid. And
Hmm.
then one of us realized that, okay, well, there has to be a smarter and a quicker way to do this. So we took a box and we just put 9 holes in it
Uh-huh.
and cubes in, and then we shook that. And then when you lifted it, you had to be very careful not to drop any of the cubes and then put it back onto the table. And this is actually what we have, what we had when we showed it to AEG. We were part of something called the Pitch Project, which Sen, which I think he's been on your show as well, and Jay. So it's Jay Cormier, I think it's called, and Sen Fung Lim, I think.
Yeah, Sen has. Yeah.
And they were running something called the Pitch Project together, where they invite a lot of designers to come and put their sell sheets into a database, and then a lot of publishers would be able to look through those, and some of those will be selected to be part of like a big show one day from morning to evening, and then the publishers, they could tune in and they could ask questions, but you had like 5 minutes or something, like a pitch to do that, which was also online. And Kåre, he was the one handling all that. I was holding the camera. So we showed it to AG among other publishers there. But actually, the interest from AG was there before that. And we told them, well, we are very gracious that you are interested in our game, and we are very interested in working with you. But we now gone through this process, we still want to show it to the other publishers. And we had some additional interest, and in the end, we chose to find it its new home with AG, and we're very, very happy with that. Yeah.
I think also in the early process, you're by the way very modest, Mads, when you say somebody got the idea. You got that idea. I remember that quite well. But anyways, I think in the early days, for both of us, it was rather new to work online. I don't know if you had done a little bit before me, Mads, but it was not a lot. But I think what it really did, at least that was good for me, was it forced us to focus on the core mechanic early on. Because we weren't bogged down by all sorts of fine details and so on. We were very focused. Okay, how do we make something interesting from this idea that Mads brought to the table? And I think in that way it was very good, quick to make iterations and quick to test. And the pitfall, I think, for us at least, was because this game has a physical component, we actually forgot about it for a long time, because especially when we signed the game, we were used to just drawing cubes out of a bag in Tabletop Simulator, and we knew we had the shaker thing. And then when we started working a little bit more with the shaker, we found out that actually the way we intended it to work gave a little too many errors in the physical world, and we actually ended up modifying the game mechanics when we started testing it again in the physical world. So there were pitfalls in that process, but at least in the initial period, it was a very, very good process, I think.
I mean, that's interesting, right? That you were able to do everything, even to the point of forgetting about the physical component, but then once you had to actually touch it again, it changed. So what do you think the hardest part about co-designing a game is for either one of you?
I think that's actually finding the correct match. So Kåre and I, just through this process, we just learned that we work very, very well together. And I've worked with other designers, and I still will be doing that. But I've also started some designs with some other designers, which never came to fruition, and we just kind of grew out of it or something. You know, it's like finding a romantic partner in some ways. You know, you have to match each other, you have to complement each other in some ways. Kåre, for example, he's very good with numbers and stuff like that. And to me, it's like, you know, I have to do basic arithmetics or whatever in my head. I just, you know, it takes me too long, so I take out my phone and do it and stuff like that. So I think I'm on the team here. I might be more of an idea guy. I can come up with ideas and go through them quite quickly, and then we, you know, go back and forth. And Kåre, he's usually the one who says, no, Mads, that's not going to work, because, you know, this is going to require a gazillion of those things and stuff like that. And so I think that's what it is for me, at least. It's finding the right match. But let Kåre answer it as well.
And I very much agree. I think for me, it's also actually a part of one of the things that's important for me is finding somebody which I like as a person. I prefer to. I mean, this is not work, so I can pick who I work with, and when I can do that, I want it to be people I like, and I like Mads very much. So I think that does a lot. and exactly that we are complementing each other. I think the hard part is sometimes if you have different ideas on how to progress. So we have something, we agree that this is not working the way we want it to, and then there are two different paths, or maybe even more about where we are going. And I think we solved a lot of that by okay, let's test it, which is basically our mantra every time we get to something. Okay, should we do this? And we don't spend many minutes discussing before we say, okay, next step is testing it. So that sometimes does the trick for us there. But I think that is the challenging part, and especially I think in the early phases when somebody comes with an idea and we discuss it back and forth, and then we might end up with two very different ideas of games in that discussion. I found like maybe I bring some idea and I explain it to Mads, and then when I explain it, Mads gets imagine a totally different game, and then when I'm done explaining, he's talking about that totally different game, and I'm no, that's not what I wanted at all. And then figuring out, well, where are we putting our focus now? I think that is one of the challenging parts.
Yeah. And if you have two guys like me who just want to make all the things, then it's like it doesn't work really. And I guess
So
any
go
complete ahead. Just that if you have a matching skill set, that's not the best match.
So what? Let's explain the game a little bit more, because I've looked into it and saw what you've presented. But tell everybody, besides the box that drops the cubes, what are we doing in the game? What are you doing in Shake That City?
So we shake the shaker, 9 cubes comes out. The active player, which is like the first player, they will choose one of the patterns that came out. And these patterns are quite interesting because in other polyomino games, you will have all the squares, they are stuck together in like one piece, like in Tetris. But in this game, they can actually be sort of like modular polyominoes, because 2 cubes can be up in this corner and another cube can be in this corner. And you will still have to replicate this pattern. And one of the things that we solved with this, so that it doesn't get too complicated, is that all player boards are at the same orientation on the table, and you cannot rotate stuff. So when I'm looking at the patterns and I'm trying to see, okay, can I use this pattern? I can also take a look at the other player boards, and I can look and see, okay, if I take this, then you are not getting it because it's even better for you, stuff like that. And in a lot of these games, you're just sitting and staring at your own player board. You're still doing this in this game. It's not a very highly interactive game like that. It's more of like a puzzle game, but you still have this opportunity to really easily see how the patterns would align on the other players' player boards. So that kind of opens it up. And one of the most fun things for me when playing these types of games is that when you have these things where things just align perfectly, you can intersect them with each other and they interlock. And because we have these open patterns, you can make things that you normally just wouldn't. Like if you had like an L shape and an L shape in a normal polyomino game, you would have a hole in the middle. You'll have to substitute with just a single tile in the middle. But in this game, you can have stuff that's just, it opens it up and makes it a lot more fun, I think, to play this game. And what we're actually doing is we're trying to build the best city. And we're trying to do this by each thing in the city that we can build. There's like 5 different things. So we have roads, we have parks, we have factories, we have homes, and we have shops. And they each have their own color. So when you take something from the pattern, you don't actually take the cubes and put them on your player board. You just exchange those with the colors of the thing. So the red cubes are the homes, for example. Place it on your player board, and then there's like point scoring mechanisms for how you place those next to other things. So we played around with that a lot. We wanted to have like a good balance. We didn't want to make a game sort of like Cascadia, for example, where you have a lot of cards that you can exchange game for game, because we didn't feel that this design needed that. In Cascadia, it's sort of the same puzzle if it's the same cards that comes out, and you are building it yourself. But in this game, we have the patterns that comes out, and this is what is interesting. It's generating new and interesting patterns in very new and interesting ways. So there's not a lot of things that we can randomize things these days. You can shuffle a deck of cards, you can pull something out of a bag, but now we have this new interesting cube or pattern generating cube machine type thing that can make each game seem new and fresh and interesting each time that you go to it. And then it's actually liberating to not have to learn new rules and remember each time, oh, now it's these things that wants to be next to these things and such like that. But we have two sides on the player board, so we do have two sets of rules for the game, so you can play in two different modes, but we don't have like you can't customize them with like 5 cards for each type or something, and you draw one from each pile each time or something like that. No.
Yeah, not like like Tiny Towns or something like that, where you change everything up every time. Yeah. Okay. So with that, what spatial games do you both enjoy? Because obviously you both have been influenced by different games, or what interactive games, because you mentioned that too. So either what spatial games have influenced you, or what interactive games have influenced you as designers.
Do you have an answer on top of your head, Kåre?
I have one thing, and you are gonna say, of course, when I say it, because one of my go-to games almost whenever we talk about something is Terraforming Mars.
Really?
You could say, what does Terraforming Mars has to do with this game? And in some aspects, it doesn't, and in some of them, I think there are a lot of single components in Terraforming Mars that are interesting to take out and analyze and discuss. So that has been a big influence for me, also because I like to play the game a lot, but I can't really figure out why I think this is a good game. So I think constantly mentally dissecting that game and trying to figure out, well, there must be something here. And then whenever we discuss about some design aspect or another, I usually go like that. Like, for instance, for our solo mode, the game has a solo mode. Like, one of my lessons from Terraforming Mars, which I've played also quite a lot solo, is that it's interesting because you both have a point score, so I can play against myself, getting better and better, but I also have a criteria for actually winning. So, and those two are sort of working a little bit against each other. So I have to match my criteria for even be considered winning, and then I have to push my score. And if I get too greedy pushing my score, I might not win, and then the score doesn't matter. And it's actually the same core concept that we have built into our solo mode, that there are some criteria I need to match, but I also need to score points.
I would not have gone to Terraforming Mars in relationship to your game, but I love a good solo game. So that's good to hear. That I actually did not realize it had a solo mode. But I mean, I think that's going to appeal to a lot of people, because that I'm in a solo group on Facebook, and that during the pandemic grew from like, I think there are maybe 1,500 people in it to like over 12,000 during. So cool. Mads, how about you? What influenced you in relation?
I'm not entirely sure, because I play a lot of tiling games, and I make a lot of tiling games, and oftentimes Kåre, he's laughing now, because I've come up with so many ideas for tiling games that I've shown him, and it's like, oh yes, it's the tiling game mess again. So I don't have any off the top of my head, except for Cascadia. I think somebody asked me to do like a recommendation for, I think it was last Christmas. And this was before Cascadia was huge and popular and everything. And I've got it off Kickstarter. Thought it was a very interesting game. So I had to recommend a game for others people on the podcast up until Christmas. And Cascadia was my pick back then, and it still is. I think it's a fantastic game. What really surprises me about Cascadia is that the way that you can play it with like gamers and non-gamers, and you can even play. I played it with a 6-year-old son, and that's not because my son is like one of those 6-year-olds who can play Terraforming Mars and beat me 8 out of 10 games or something like that. It's more like it has a mode that where you just kind of shave off a lot of the complexity, and it just becomes a different game, but it's still recognizable, and it's still Cascadia. And I just love how it's able to do that. And it's just it's hitting that fine line between something that's making you think, but it's not giving you a headache, right? And it plays in 45 minutes. So yeah.
So I have to ask, I'm guessing you're similar in age to me. Did you grow up playing Tetris on like the original Game Boy?
I don't think we didn't have a Game Boy. We couldn't
Oh,
afford to have like
Oh,
stuff like that.
oh, sure,
But I
sure.
think that we had some of the cheap knockoffs.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I had
Okay.
one of those games, but it wasn't the original first. No.
I didn't get one until I could get one used at the pawn shop. So don't worry.
Yeah. Okay.
like yeah, no. But like recently, my older son turned 14, and there's a local arcade where you can pay a small fee for a group of people and then like go play classic games, and they had Tetris, and it took me back to being like 11 and playing Tetris for hours and hours and hours. So I totally get like wanting to manipulate things spatially, like because I don't know, Tetris is something that when I can play something that feels like that on a board game, I'm always happy. So
Yeah.
not that Cascadia is that. Cascadia is not that, but when you said
It's more open in
yeah,
that sense. Yeah.
yeah, but when you said all the tile laying games,
Yeah.
Yeah, because Tetris is like it's about packing basically. How compact can I make it? And
Yeah.
that's not really an element in a game like Cascadia. It's not a question. I can always have my
Right.
tile wherever I play it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No. Yeah. Absolutely. No. It was just more the when Matt said, "Yeah, Coors is going to laugh at this," but all the tiling. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, what? So if you were to recommend to somebody, besides Cascadia, so I'm going to put you on the spot more. I'm going to push it. Besides Cascadia, what are 3 other tile laying games that you would recommend? And if of any type.
I'm gonna have to look on Board Game Geek to see what I
Okay,
have in my
yeah,
collection.
do it. We could. This is.
Yeah, I'm not. I actually don't. I don't have that many tile laying games that comes to mind. I have to go look at the shelves if I have to come up
No.
with it.
So okay, so that'll be
Okay.
Mads' question. And while he is looking
Okay.
at that, my question for you then, Core, because I love Terraforming Mars too. Then is, do you play with Prelude? If
Yes.
okay, you do. Okay, so do you? Some people have said that it cuts out part of what the game does well early on, as far as being a little bit more cutthroat. Do you think that's true or not? Since you've played tons.
Yeah, maybe. I think maybe it does that. I've actually not thought that much about it. What I often hear people say about Prelude is that it makes the game shorter, and I
Absolutely.
but I actually don't agree with that. Not as much as people think. First of all, I think the drafting process, initial drafting, picking of cards will be a bit longer because people are looking more. It's harder to find the synergies. But what you actually cut out, in my opinion, is the first 3 generations, which in most games, not the first generation, but the second and third generation in the preload free game, and I find those are generally played very fast. That's at least my experience. And they're played very fast because people are very limited. They spend their initial resources, and then they're very limited in a couple of rounds until the engine starts rolling. So I don't feel like it does the game much shorter. What I do like, and why I often almost always play with preload, is that I think basically the one of the best parts is looking at those 10 initial projects, your 2 corps, your 4 preload cards, and finding the synergy.
Yeah.
And actually, I could probably stop playing the moment I confirmed that I found a good synergy. So like in Generation 5, I could probably stop playing because now I know this engine was working. This was a good match of cards.
Right.
So it expands that fun because the preload cards add something extra into that. But I actually recently played a couple of solo games without it because I wanted to, get what was the feeling like before. And I actually found that now that I've played so much Prelude, it was fine without as well. I actually enjoyed that too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No. All right. So now that we've given Mads time to
I'm ready.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you got for 3? Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
I've got even better. I've got 5, but I'll be very short about it. Okay, so first of all, Copenhagen it's from Asger and Daniel. It's a fantastic it's using those usual tiling games. I was just very, very, very surprised the year it came out that it was not nominated or even mentioned from the Spiel des Jahres. I think they just had a new jury, and the old jury would have 100% put it up for one of the spots, I think.
That's interesting. Okay, yeah.
Then we have Carcassonne, which is just a game that I've completely forgotten about, but it's the original old timer, and I just took it out recently, and my 6-year-old boy, he's loving it, and for that reason I am too, just rediscovering it. It's great. Then we have I'm cheating a little bit, we have a game called Drop It, which is one of those games. It's not really a tiling game, it's more like a tile dropping game.
Okay.
Where the tiles are more like just geometrical shapes, and you drop it into what do you call, like 5 on a row? What do you call those type of games where you have
this
discs,
stand-up board with 2 glass plates or plexiglass plates?
Where you put in the,
yeah. Okay.
But in this game we don't. Yeah, we just put it in between 2 like pieces of plexiglass, which is just all clear, and then we drop different shapes, and then it has different rules for how you want to drop them and make them. So it's just taking something that's classic and giving it a twist, and it just feels completely different and completely new.
I totally forgot about that game until you mentioned it. I had to look it up, a picture of it. Yeah. Okay, cool.
And then we have Karuba, which is a bingo style tiling game that everybody can play. And it's one of the games that I bring to this game night almost all the time, because if somebody's new and they don't play a lot of games, this is one of the games you can just teach them, and everybody's just enjoying it in like no time. And finally, we have Nova Luna, which I think it's overlooked design by Uwe Rosenberg, but he did it in co-design, sort of. He didn't really co-design it. He had another game. He looked at another game from another designer and said, I think I can do this better somehow, something. Yeah. And then he redesigned it, and then he put the game out, and then both of their names are on the box, but they didn't have any cooperation doing the game, which is kind of weird. But I think this is the better version of Patchwork, for me at least, and it plays up to 4 players.
I have heard people make that comparison. I enjoy that game also. I mean, was it completely overlooked? I thought it got a nod from the Spiel committee.
Copenhagen?
No. Nova Luna.
Oh, Nova Luna. Yeah, I think that one got on the short list or something.
Yeah, I thought at least got on the short list. Yeah. Okay.
But another lot of people are talking about it. It's still, it's Patchwork all the way, I think. Well, it's not really like Patchwork, but I like to make the comparison. It has the same sort of, you go around and whoever is last goes first, and so
Oh yeah. I can see the comparison. So on that note, I mean, that's part of the reason I asked you what you would recommend to new players. Why don't you tell people, and for those that can't see, Mads has I assume it's a poster. Is it a poster to his shoulder left? But about the local game club he is involved in, and meets once or twice a week, and tell us about that, and how do you introduce people to games, and then we can segue for both of you. How are you going to let's talk about that, and then I'll segue, but we'll
all right,
come back to Shake That City in a second.
Yeah, so I just recently moved out of the second biggest city in Denmark to one of the suburbs outside of the city. It's a place called Lystrup, and we have around 10,000 citizens or something like that out here. And it's very mixed. It's like every time we have like an election, this is one of the places they will do the polls, because we have like the exit polls, and because we are like a perfect representation of the rest of the country, apparently. So we have the rich, the poor, and everybody in between, and everything from so I moved here some years ago, and I just wanted to start up something where I could play myself, but also that I just enjoy, spreading the word about board games. It's really my big passion in life, and so I just opened up where I live. We have like a place you can rent for like parties and stuff like that, and then I rented that for like 7 Tuesdays in a row a couple of years ago, just before the big Corona lockdowns started, and a lot of people showed up, and we didn't have enough chairs, and people went home to get chairs and stuff like that, and it was quite amazing. And then all the Corona stuff happened. It's been like up and down a little bit, and we found a new place to stay. And but yeah, we still see a lot of people coming, and we just enjoy spreading the gospel about board games. Yeah.
On that note, is that the type of place you both met, or did you know each other just via board game design community in Denmark?
Yeah, I think the more accurate answer is the latter. So I mean, I haven't met the board game design communities in other countries, but I think in Denmark we have a community where we are not a big country, and a lot of the people who are engaged in board game design know each other, and especially the people who are doing this to draw some sort of substantial income, either living off it fully or partly. So there's a rather strong community and a lot of knowledge sharing and helping each other and so on. So and that's actually where me and Mads got to know each other. We've both been active at the Festival. I think that's where we first met, which is a big Danish, maybe the biggest, I don't know, or the second biggest Danish gaming convention, where we both were involved in. There's a board game design competition there, and we were both involved in that, both as participants or as organizers, and going back and forth and doing different things in that respect. So that's where we got to know each other, and I think we're a big part of the Danish board game design community. Also meet and discuss.
That's cool, and actually that's where I was going to go next. Are you both going to Essen, or what does that look like for
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
we are going. I think it's the first time we are going together or following along. We've been there both at the same time, but going together both to show off Shake That City actually at AEG's booth.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Come by and say hi if this airs before Essen Spiel, and you can meet Kåre and I. We are at the AEG booth in Hall 3 for some of the time, some of the days. I can't really remember exactly right now, but we're gonna be there quite a lot. So come by and get a demonstration if you want. Yeah.
And the rest of the time, I mean, this is not the only game we've designed. So we have more ideas on the table, and also some we are pitching. So I have actually lost a bit track. Mads is coordinating all the meetings. So, but we will also be talking to a lot of publishers about the new game ideas, both something we do together.
Yeah.
And also Mads is doing quite a lot more himself than I am. So those are we also
for the time being. Yeah.
Yeah, for the time being. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you see us running, don't stop us, please. I think we've booked something like meetings with, I think it's 24 publishers by now. Yeah. So, and some of these meetings are back to back, but we try to book them in the same hall so that, we'll have just
less running
minutes to run. Yeah. It's going to be.
Have either of you ever attended any of the conventions in the States, Gen Con or anything?
I've never been to the US, so yeah, but I want to. Go.
I have been to the US with work quite a few times, and I've been there a couple of times on vacation. And some years ago, I was in the US, and actually I was on vacation with my wife, and we decided we wanted to go to a gaming convention. So we went to a gaming convention in Birmingham, which is called PlayOnCon, I think.
Okay.
Which was a very cool experience to see. It's very different from Danish gaming conventions. I don't think the scope for this is enough to try to explain how different they are, but it was a very, very cool experience. And I got to play Cards Against Humanity and found out that at least those people I was playing with, their humor and Danish humor have nothing in common. And that's how I learned that Cards Against Humanity is not a game about being funny. It's about a game about knowing what the others find funny. And I did not know that.
That is true. Was that your first exposure to that game? Had you heard of it before?
Nope. And they were very, very nice people who spent a lot of time warning me about how horrible this game was. And I must admit, they prepared me for something much, much more horrible, where I'm like, it's not that bad, really. But I think they were very concerned, and they probably didn't know where they had me, what kind of person was I, because I was a European, and maybe I had different standards on some of those topics it gets around.
Yeah, it's one of those games that I consider more of an activity than a game. But that's interesting to be down in Birmingham. Well, the reason I ask is for some of our listeners, what all they are going to be familiar with is things like Origins. I'm here in Ohio, so that's an hour and a half from me, which is the game convention put on by the Game Manufacturers Association. And then Gen Con is also an hour and a half in the other direction in Indianapolis. But both of those are really more about playing games, even Gen Con, even though it has 50,000 people or so, versus something like the New York Toy Fair, which is going to be a lot more like what Essen is like. Like the New York Toy Fair has over 100,000 people, and it's more of a business setting. And from what I understand and what I've seen pictures and videos of Essen, you're only doing like 2-minute pitches for your games. People are coming in and out. There's lines for the games. You're not sitting down at a table and just in the same way that you would. I mean, does Essen even have the giant game hall that like Gen Con does?
No. You're partly right. You can actually, for many of the games, sit down and get to play them. But it's obviously not every game, and it might be hard to get a slot. And it's obviously not. It's obvious that it started out as a business fair and then has sort of transitioned into a convention, but not real. It's a weird hybrid that's neither one or the other, and at the same time both. So it can sometimes be a bit confusing, I think.
I think the biggest problem with playing games at the fair, there's actually two problems. But one is that there's not a lot of space to play. There's no common areas that you can sit and play. There's only like restaurants and stuff, and everybody's just eating and going in and out. Everybody's coming to Essen to buy games and then go to their hotel or back home to play the games. But the convention space where you should have sat down and played the game, the publishers have to pay for the size of the booth, so they're not putting that much money towards making a huge table space that you can sit down and a lot of people can play. They will have some space, but it's like maximum the same size as their own like sales booth or something like that. Only the biggest publishers or some like Asmodee or something like that, they might have a bigger play space, but it's commonly shared then between different publishers that they're under their umbrella or something like that. So and then on top of that comes the noise. It's just it's not a hotel with carpets on the floor that will the noise is just bouncing off all the walls, and it's just it's like I imagine what like a busy day in the subway or something like it's just a rah, 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 rah. So it's hard to concentrate at the fair, but you can get an idea. You typically get if it's a complicated game. I played one the last time I was there, and it's like a 2-3 hour game, and we played the first 2-3 rounds out of 12 or something, just to get a taste of what it was like. And then you could decide then and there, okay, did I like this? Then I'm gonna go buy it, or if not, move on, right? So you do have that opportunity, but playing a full game, it's not that common.
You're not supposed to be there to play. You're supposed to be there to buy, basically.
And that's what I've heard from those who have attended and those who even presented there. Is it's just a different sort of culture and event. So so Shake That City, what how do you are you looking forward to that experience of sharing it with people, or does that make either of you nervous, or what are you thinking?
That's the whole point.
Go ahead, Kåre.
Yeah, it's I mean, now we've been working on this game. You can figure out we started just when lockdown hit, and playing with people here and there. But I mean, the whole point is to get people to see it. I mean, when I said my point was like, I want to have a game published, it's because I want to see people enjoy something that I've made. That's really no, this is gonna be awesome. Not at all nervous.
Okay.
We've been with the prototype to a few like local conventions here in Denmark, and every time we start explaining the game, it's like, and of course you start showing off the shaker. So it's like 30 seconds into the pitch of the game, you'll show how the shaker works. You lift up the shaker, and everybody's just like, oh, show me more, and then they're kind of hooked from there. So
That's great.
I'm not worried. I'm not at all. I think this is gonna do great, especially at conventions. I'm sorry that you can't buy it at Essen this year, but yeah, next year you can, or all the other conventions in between. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. Like Kåre, it's just seeing somebody else play your game. That's really and enjoying themselves, and yeah, that's what we do. That's why we do it, right? So.
Well, I mean, everybody has different motivations for everything, and some people don't like big crowds and so forth. So that's why I ask, because some people like the idea of having, it's in their contracts that they're expected to go to Essen if that's the release and whatever. And some people are like, well, I'll do it because I have to, but I hate it. And other people, like the both of you, sound like you are looking forward to the experience. So that's great. I mean, everyone's just different, right? So yeah. What is and then if there's anything else that the two of you want to talk about, we can end with that. But what is the thing that you think people might forget in the game that you want to make sure that they remember to do? I think you might have kind of alluded to this in terms of making sure that you're just aware of what everybody is out, but I don't know. What's that one rule, or maybe not even a rule, but just that thing that sometimes people will forget when they're learning to play your game?
I don't think we've seen anything like consistently enough to say that there's this one thing that we can point to. I've personally been a little bit worried about the setting up of the game, and it's not something that will ruin your experience or make it a much worse game. But the way we intended it and the way it's designed is that, like I said earlier, that if you're looking at your player board, you should be able to look at the other players' player boards and then figure out, can they use what I'm taking now? Mm-hmm. And if you miss during setup that these player boards, if you align them so that what you're seeing, and then you rotate it to the next player and they're seeing that, and you think that's the same, but you actually one player has to kind of look at their player board upside down, if that makes sense, because somebody else is seeing it the right way. I don't know how to explain that in words without illustrations, but it's shown in the rule book, and I just recently posted something about it in the Danish design community, just to ask, does this look confusing to anybody? And to my relief, everybody except one person got it exactly right, and the one person who got it wrong is one who translates rules into Danish. So I think it's a good thing that if he's gonna translate our rule book, then it's a good thing that we caught him early.
Yeah. Well, anything that you want to add, Kåre? Or?
No, I agree with Mads. I can't think of any consistent issue we've seen. I mean, sometimes people are not allowed to rotate the pattern; they copy it down directly as it is. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, especially with these disconnected patterns, that like you have cubes that are not adjacent, but there's some space between them. Yeah. Sometimes when people copy those down, they can remember the pattern wrong. Right. But that's not something you must say, oh, remember this. It's more like being aware of how they are spatially set together. I think that's the thing I see most that people sometimes miss on. But there's usually somebody at the table, if they're just paying a little bit of attention, that can say, oh, I think you did that wrong. And then it's no biggie.
It's more of an issue of getting used to, these shapes now, they are actually like modular polyominoes. Like I said, I don't know if that's a word. It's just what I call it. It is now.
It is now. First use of it.
Yeah. So it's just, it might take a little bit getting used to, but we've shown this obviously to so many people who've not seen it before. It's just playing their first game. And yeah, every once in a while there is one player who will forget something like that, or not forget it, like just copy it wrong. Somebody will look at it and say, "Whoa, you didn't do that correctly," and then they will like, "Okay, let me just adjust." So yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Anything else that either of you would like to add before we wrap up today?
I think just go check out the game.
Yeah.
And see if it's something for you. I'm very excited about this. It's gonna AG they got Cascadia that just won Spiel des Jahres with the Cascadia, and Kåre and I, we had like as a design goal, not as like a design goal in the sense that we want to win the Spiel des Jahres, because who doesn't want to do that if you're a game designer, but just to figure out that focus group of people, like who are we aiming this game at and for. Mm-hmm. And early on we realized that AG they had a bit different idea about what we had, and then we had to like sort of align to each other to see which is the actual target group for this game. But we won that discussion, so that's good. We wanted just to be a game that's easily and very like available to everyone, one that you can pick up easily, and as it's shown, it's quite addictive gameplay. So we have a very good feeling about this game. We think it's gonna get a lot of attention. Yeah.
Great.
At least we hope. Yeah.
Do you know, is it going to be like 30 euros, 40 euros? Where do you know where it's going to land when
the price? I think it's going to be priced similar to Cascadia and Calico and games like that. Yeah, it's the box is the same size. It's exactly the same size as those games. So yeah.
Okay. Well,
and probably I think maybe the game will be cheaper on Kickstarter, or at least you'll get some other stuff with the game that we can't talk about.
I think
but I don't know exactly
if we are supposed to talk about it.
Yeah. What are you saying? Go.
I don't know if we're supposed to talk about it.
No. Well, I don't really know, but I think it's been discussed. So maybe it will be like that and maybe not. But check it out when it hits Kickstarter.
Yeah. So maybe there'll be some surprises on the Kickstarter about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we haven't committed to too much.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. I hope you have a good day there, and we'll be looking forward to the game. I know I'm looking forward to the game. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Christopher, and thank you for having us. Yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's been a very enjoyable talk.
Yes, for sure.